welcome to the Saturday Slam and Jam here on the Athletic NBA Daily. On today's show, we're talking top stories of the week, our quarterly Slammie Awards, and John Hollinger stops by to talk about his new book, The Basketball 100, by everybody here at the Athletic. It's a great, great book. Suggest that you go pick it up now. But to start with, Al, tell me what the top stories in the NBA were this week.
Well, Andrew, the top story this week was the conclusion of group play in the NBA Cup. We have our Elite Eight, who will now move on to the elimination round. In the East, we've got Orlando going to Milwaukee and Atlanta going to New York. In the West, it's Dallas OKC and Golden State Houston. BetMGM has the Thunder and Knicks tied for the best odds at plus 300, but don't overlook my Atlanta Hawks. Is that our
BetMGM line of the week? Is that our BetMGM line of the week right there, Al?
Yeah, and I'm going to give you my pick right now, Andrew, because the Atlanta Hawks have the worst odds at plus 1,800, but are exactly the type of weird team that could do this. Just to get this far, the Hawks had to get out of a group that featured Boston and Cleveland, two teams who have 7 losses combined, 3 of which came at the hands of the mighty Hawks.
So crazy.
Speaking of Celtics and Cavs, now they might be out of the race for the NBA Cup, but they can still win the second most prestigious trophy this season, the Larry O'Brien. And this week, we got round 2 of Celtics Cavs, this time in Cleveland. Down by 12 entering the fourth quarter, the Cavs would outscore the Celtics 43-27, including 20 from Donovan Mitchell in the quarter to win 115-111. Now, it should be noted that Boston played without 2 starters, Jaylen Brown and Derek White, but they did have Kristaps Porzingis back, who scored 21 in the loss and played a season-high 32 minutes. The Cavs are now 20-3, which is incredible on its own. Even more incredible that they could be 22-1 if they could just beat those damn Atlanta Hawks. Those Atlanta Hawks have won 5 in a row, including a win over the Milwaukee Bucks, who had previously been on a 7-game winning streak. The Bucks season has finally normalized as they've clawed their way back to 11-10, 5th spot in the East. Giannis is leading the league in scoring. He's putting up over 32 a game to go along with 11.5 rebounds, 6.5 assists, while shooting a career high from the field. Next up for the Bucks is a game that has already happened by the time you hear this, a marquee matchup against those Celtics in Boston. Now, that's probably enough about good Eastern Conference teams. What's been going on with the Wizards, you ask? Well, let me tell you, they're 2-18. They've lost 16 in a row. They have lost by single digits once. Again, they have lost by single digits once. They're 2-18. Their next 4 are against Denver, Memphis, Cleveland, and Boston. So let's just agree to bump that losing streak up to 20, okay?
Yeah,
if they get to 20 straight losses, that would be tied for the 10th longest losing streak in NBA history. Every game beyond that, appointment viewing. The team that may decide Washington's historical fate is the Charlotte Hornets, because after those next 4 games, Washington goes Charlotte, Milwaukee, OKC, Charlotte, New York, New York. And that last matchup against the Knicks is on December 30th and is on NBA TV for some reason, which is great for us because there's a non-zero chance the Wizards could be looking to avoid the second longest losing streak by that point.
Yeah.
Now, from losing streaks to winning streaks, the longest winning streak in the league currently is held by the Dallas Mavericks, who have won 6 straight, including their most recent win, which was over those Wizards. After a slow start to the season, Dallas has won 10 of their last 11, including 5 without Luka Doncic. Assuming they beat Toronto on Saturday, Dallas will head to Oklahoma City next Tuesday for the NBA Cup Elimination Round game on a 7-game winning streak. Now, a team whose 6-game winning streak seems like a distant memory is the Los Angeles Lakers, who have lost 6 of their last 8. They've dropped to 12-10, 9th in the West. A lot of the conversation this week was about LeBron James and whether he was still elite. Andrew, is he a washed king? Prior to a 29-point game in a 41-point blowout loss to Miami, LeBron had a lackluster run of games, averaging only 16.8 points per game over a 6-game stretch. Now, in a 29-point loss to the Wolves, LeBron only had 10, 8, and 4 in 30 minutes with 6 turnovers. The last time LeBron scored 10 or fewer points while playing at least 30 minutes was 2007 in a 92-74 thriller against the Dallas Mavericks. LeBron is averaging the fewest points since his rookie season. More importantly, he's getting to the line at the lowest rate of his career. Now, if there is one bright spot for Lakers fans, this recent downturn and the increased flexibility that December 15th brings will at the very least ramp up trade discussions among the fan base. Now, Rob Pelinka's not going to do anything, of course, but it'll still be fun for fans to come up with fake trades to save the Lakers season for a few months. Finally, this week, we have another notable retirement. Paul Millsap, who played for 5 franchises across 16 seasons, announced his retirement this week. Millsap was the 47th pick in the 2006 draft, playing several seasons in Utah before going to Atlanta, where he would make 4 All-Star games and an All-Defense team. Millsap's career high of 46 came in a particularly memorable game. Millsap scored 11 of his 46 points in the final 28 seconds of regulation in a game against the Heat's Big Three in 2010 to send the game to overtime where the Jazz would eventually win. 11 points, 28 seconds. Even more crazy than that, the 3 3-pointers he hit in those 28 seconds were more than he had made in his first 4 seasons combined to that point. He had made 2 threes until that game in his career, and then made 3 in 28 seconds. Go check out our friends at No Dunks on YouTube. They made a nice little short video showing the highlights from that game. We wish Paul a great retirement. And Andrew, those are the top stories this week.
Wow. Always something with the NBA. Always something with the NBA.
Something.
Hey, Al, we are going to do our quarterly Slammies. Al, will you walk us through these awards as we tell people what we've been watching and what we've been thinking about what we've been watching?
Yeah, Andrew, in the past, we have done the Slammies before, but I'll be honest with you folks, it's usually just on a week when we can't think of anything else to do. Not this year. This year, I noticed that every other podcast was doing quarter awards, so we're going to do Slammies quarterly, okay? Now, we're not going to do the big awards, MVP, Rookie of the Year. Plenty of smart people out there doing that. You can go listen to Sam Vecini. I listened to it where they did their quarterly awards for all the real awards. We made up our own awards, and that's why they're the Slammies. And our first award, the League Pass Team of the First Quarter Award. Now, this is the team that we have watched the most, non-Thunder edition. You can't cheat, Andrew. So you got to pick a team that maybe you didn't even go into the season planning to watch this team the most. Like for me last year, I did not go into the season thinking I was going to watch a ton of Detroit Pistons basketball, but I'm a sucker for streaks, good or bad, and I could not tear myself away from the Pistons.
So sad.
So who has been your League Pass team of the first quarter?
Honestly, Al, it's been the Houston Rockets. And a lot of it is that I know what I'm getting from night to night, and that's defense. Like this is a insane defense that kind of starts with Dylan Brooks as the starter, but then off the bench, you have Amin Thompson and Tari Eason coming in, just creating havoc. Those two are so much fun. And you don't really know what you're getting night to night. Like they'll close sometimes with Alperen Şengün as like the main guy. And then some nights he's not. You know, Jalen Green has been hot and cold, throughout the season. A lot of it is just like, okay, what are they going to do this time? And I give Ime Udoka so much credit for this like turnaround that's happened in Houston. He has really they have really taken on like his identity, and you can kind of see him shaping this roster and shaping the success of this roster as they go on. And a lot of it is like he's pushing the right buttons. They're 15-8. They're second in the Western Conference currently. And a lot of it, I think, is coaching. They have a lot of pieces. I think that if you surveyed 20 NBA experts asking them who's the best player on the Rockets, I think that I don't know that there would be a true consensus there. I think that a lot of people would say Alperen Şengün, but I think you could find people that would say different things. And so I do think that this team, they're on the rise for sure. And I just like tuning into them night to night just because I don't know exactly what's going to happen. And also, I'm just waiting for a Reed Shepherd explosion. We haven't gotten that yet. And so I'm just waiting on League Pass. I promise you there's going to be one night this season where people tune in and Reed Shepherd's got like 35. His season high is 12 currently, and he just hasn't played great so far, and some of it's just opportunity. But I promise you, we're getting a Reed Shepherd night at some point.
Well, Andrew, it's a great pick, and I'm going also, not with the Rockets, but another team that is still in the NBA Cup. I mentioned them earlier, the Atlanta Hawks. Now,
Wow.
Atlanta, I have ended up watching them the most. Now, part of that is because they're always on the early game. So when it's 4 p.m. out here on the East Coast, I just turn on a game. It's usually the Hawks. The Hawks are usually on. They're probably as good as they were last year, but they are infinitely more enjoyable to watch. I'm so much more interested in tuning in to the Hawks this year compared to last year, even though, big picture, they're probably about as good. They'll drop games to Detroit. They lost to Chicago, Portland, and then they'll beat Cleveland and Boston and win their NBA Cup group. They're just a wonderfully bizarre team. They're currently on a 5-game winning streak that featured 2 wins over Cleveland, who has only lost to Boston and Atlanta, and they beat Milwaukee, as I mentioned, ending that 7-game winning streak. Trae Young averaging 12 assists per game, something that hasn't been done since John Stockton. Jalen Johnson is having the breakout year everyone predicted, and Dyson Daniels is like the perfect backcourt partner for Trae. I just love watching this team. They're just so much more interesting and fun than they have been in years past, in my opinion. Even if their ceiling might be the same for this season, it does feel like they're finally building something that could be something sustainable long term. Okay, Andrew, second award. Say what? Stat of the first quarter award. The stat that is making us say what. And for me, Andrew, this is one I pinpointed in the preseason, something I was going to focus on, and it is coming true way more than I would have ever expected. And that is Nikola Jokic's on-off numbers.
Oh my gosh.
I had a feeling going into the season, everyone was talking about the bench, and historically, Jokic's on-offs have been insane, and I had a feeling that this was going to be the craziest on-off we would ever see from Jokic in his career, and that is absolutely true. So per Clean the Glass, his current on-off number is plus 31.8. Now, for reference, last year he led the league with around like plus 23.7 or something.
Wow.
It has jumped up to plus 31.8. What is even more interesting, though, is on Cleaning the Glass, you can break it down by offense and defense. So when Jokic is on the court, Denver actually gives up 1 more point per 100 possessions. So it's not coming on the defensive side, which it has in the past. He's usually been like a -6. So what that means is that on offense, Denver scores 32.7 more points per 100 possessions when he's on the court versus off the court. In comparison to previous seasons, this is his offensive on-off numbers, the previous seasons. Plus 18.9, plus 18.7, plus 11.3, plus 13.5. He's plus 32.7. He's almost double his previous high. That is, I don't know what to do with that number. I mean, it's incredible. It is going to be a major talking point as we start getting to award season, and we're talking about him winning his potential 4th MVP. Because what he's doing right now with arguably his worst bench ever is just killing it every time he is on the court.
Yeah, the fix is in right now. Calvin Booth, you know what? Everybody's like, what's Calvin Booth doing? How can he do this? You know what? He made the bench so bad to make Jokic look so good that he's going to win his 4th MVP. The fix is in. Way to go, Calvin.
So, Andrew, what is your say what stat of the first quarter?
Okay, this stat made me say what? And it's about the Thunder and how disruptive they are on defense. And now, like, everybody knows, like, this is a team that thrives off transition. They get a lot of steals. They're second in charges. They're first in defensive loose balls recovered. There are a couple stats that made me say what? I said, what? They're at 21.4 deflections per game, which is the highest number since they started tracking this stat. The highest last season, remember, they're 21.4. The highest last season for deflections was 16.3 per game. The current record, which is held by the 16-17 Warriors, is 18.7. The Thunder are currently at 21.4. They are just demolishing that record. And then if you just go to steals, let's just not an advanced stat, just how many steals they're getting per game. Per game, 12 steals per game for the Thunder right now, which seems super sustainable whenever you watch them play with the players that they've got. You add Alex Caruso to this mix, who hasn't even played that much. Like, absolutely, they can keep that up. Al, since the 99-2000 season, how many teams have had double-digit steals per game?
1.
It's not 1.
5.
It is 4. 4 teams since 99-2000 have had average double-digit steals. It's the 1920 Bulls that averaged 10 per game. It's the 15-16 Rockets that averaged 10 per game. It's the 05-06 Bobcats who averaged 10 per game. It's the 02-03 Sixers who averaged 10 per game. Al, none of those teams even cracked 11 steals per game, and the Thunder are currently at 12. The Thunder are doing something defensively that no team has done really ever. And so it made me say what, because inherently, like watching this team night in, night out, though, yeah, they're disruptive, all these things, like, wow, that's great. They are a historically disruptive team, and maybe the most disruptive team on the defensive end in the history of the NBA.
Yeah, and it's not as bad as last season, but they need those steals because their rebounding still isn't great. Yeah. I'm looking at Clean the Glass right now. Their offensive rebound rate has improved. They're 22nd in the league, but their defensive rebounding rate is still pretty low. They're 29th, only ahead of Portland. So they need those steals to generate more possessions, and they are definitely doing it this season. Okay, Andrew, that brings us to the They Did What Now award, which is our biggest positive surprise. So this could be a player. This could be a team. Just a nice story that you didn't see coming, Andrew. And what would your choice for that be?
I'm going to go with the Orlando Magic. They've won 13 of their last 15 games without Paolo Banchero. That's a lot of games. Now, you dig a little bit deeper, not that much deeper, and you just look at who they played. And here's the list of teams that they've played. Pelicans, Wizards, Hornets, Pacers, Sixers, Suns without KD, Lakers, Pistons, Hornets, Bulls, Nets twice, and the Sixers. So, it's not great, but they won all these games. They won every single one of them, which is not a given whenever you lose your best player. They have, I think, a floor that only teams like Boston and Cleveland have in the Eastern Conference, and it all starts on the defensive end for them. They make you work for everything. They are outrageously physical from the perimeter all the way to the hoop. I talked about them being a team that could completely fall off when they lost Paolo, and it looked like that was going to happen, but they stabilized, and they've been really good. I did not think that we'd be sitting here talking about the 16-8 third seed in the East, Orlando Magic, and here we are, which it's incredible. They've been great and alive for the cup too. So shout out to the Orlando Magic.
I'm going to stick with someone in their same division. It is a player, and it is Tyler Hero.
Yeah.
Now, he'd probably become a little underrated these past few years just because the only time you really heard people talking about him was either in relation to a Heat trade package that no one wanted or in relation to the Heat's playoff record without him. On the other hand, with his contract, this archetype of player, you kind of understood why he wouldn't get valued highly by most NBA fans. But he is off to an insanely hot start this season. He's currently shooting a career-high 42% from three. But hey, maybe the shooting cools off. Hero's season goes way beyond a hot shooting streak. That 42% is coming on 10.3 three-point attempts per game, which is also a career high, but his overall field goal attempts per game has not changed. He's completely changed his shot profile. Through his first 5 seasons in the league, he never took fewer than 36% of his shots from the mid-range. Last season, it was at 44%. Almost half of his shot attempts were from the mid-range. This season, it's down to 23%. And most importantly, the percentage of his shots that are long twos dropped from 15% last year to 2% this year. He's essentially eliminated long twos from his game completely. And those shots have become three-pointers, where he's now taking 55% of his shot attempts. But also, he's getting to the rim more, and it's led to a career-high 3.9 free throw attempts per game. This is a completely different offensive player and one whose value is much more in line with his contract now. Like, take an advanced stat like BPM. Hero has never had a BPM over 1.6. And this season, he's at 3.3. And players in that range currently are guys like Donovan Mitchell, Anthony Edwards, Jalen Brunson. Now, the bad news is that his defensive impact hasn't significantly changed. The Heat allow 6.6 more points per 100 possession when he's on the court, which is in the 14th percentile. So it's not like he suddenly becomes this perfect player. You know, his defense will probably always likely limit his overall impact, but he has been a legitimately great offensive player this season. And that made me say, they did what now? Now, Andrew, our next award, this is a great one.
Yeah, I like
now, this is going to be fun award is for our biggest disappointment. I was trying to remember the exact phrase. Now, this is going to be fun. I saw that you can buy that framed. You can buy that cover, the old Lakers cover of Dwight Howard and Steve Nash. You can get it giant size framed. Hang that in your bedroom. I thought that'd be a nice Christmas gift if you're looking for something for a Lakers fan out there. Yeah. My choice, how can it not be the Pacers? Okay. A team, they made a big midseason trade last season. They rode that all the way to the Eastern Conference Finals. They're now sitting at 9-14, 10th in the East. They're 4-7 against teams below 500. They have a minus 4.8 point differential, which is worse than the Toronto Raptors.
Oh, my.
Now, Cleaning the Glass has them as the 25th ranked defense, which probably shouldn't be that big of a surprise. But what is surprising is that the Pacers are currently the 20th ranked offense. I mean, remember last season, at this point last season, they were the greatest offense we had ever seen by offensive efficiency. And looking at their shot chart, they're basically shooting the same from three, the same at the rim. Where there's been a massive drop-off, though, is in the mid-range. Last season, the Pacers were the number one mid-range team in the league, which I think I had forgotten. Better than the Phoenix Suns, the teams we kind of associate with the mid-range. The Pacers shot 48.7% in the mid-range. This season, they're down to 42.5%. And the main offenders have been Miles Turner and Benedict Mathurin, who are shooting 38% and 32% from the mid-range, respectively. Everyone knows Halliburton is having a down year. The injuries to Nembhard and Aaron Nesmith are huge. Those two were both top 5 in minutes played for the Pacers last year. So their loss is a legitimate excuse. But still, in this Eastern Conference, where you can just like stumble into the 6th seed with any semblance of competency, 9-14 is a massive disappointment. And it seems to be getting worse. 4 straight losses, and the opponents, Detroit, Memphis, Toronto, and Brooklyn. Next 4 are Chicago, Charlotte, Philly, and New Orleans. This is an amazing stretch for them to stabilize their season, and halfway through, they look more lost than ever. And if they don't pick up some wins soon, Andrew, it could get bad fast, because after those next 4, they go Suns, Kings, Warriors, Thunder, Boston, Bucks, Heat, Suns. Good luck to the Pacers. Andrew, what was your biggest disappointment?
That's brutal. So when I thought about this, I was thinking about like the spirit of that Lakers team. I think that it feels a little bit like maybe with the situation that the Timberwolves are in. You know, I think but by the time that we got around to the NBA season, a lot of people had talked themselves into this Minnesota roster as being better than what they had. Okay,
that might be the case. I don't think anyone was saying this is going to be fun. Well, even people who liked it.
Well, whatever the case, people had talked themselves into it. People had really talked themselves into like this team being good. And this is going to be fun. Lakers about 20 games in, we're about 500. And that's where the Timberwolves sit. Not fun at all. Like it just does not feel fun. You have stuff going on the court. You have Anthony Edwards talking off the court. They've had a couple, they had a really nice win against the Clippers where they completely blew them out. They beat the hapless Lakers by a ton as well. But still, it just doesn't quite feel like the season that we thought they'd have. They're coming off a conference finals appearance, and it feels like they have fallen back in the pack. And I don't know. This is the thing that I just don't know about this Timberwolves team is what do they hang their hat on? Like last year, they were the best defensive team by a large margin. This season, they're 6th, and they're not far from being outside the top 10. And so, like, what do they hang their hat on? What are they? They're not a great offensive team and really weren't last season either. And so I just don't really know if you are the Minnesota Timberwolves, what is your identity? And a lot of this was planning for the future of Anthony Edwards. Well, I just don't know that the players that they got, specifically Julius Randle, is the exact kind of player that kind of clogs the lane. Anthony Edwards has not taken many shots at the rim this season in comparison to last year or years before. He's taken way more threes, and I think some of that is good, certainly, because he shot it so well. But also, I think that it's really just gumming up their offense because there's nowhere to go. You're playing with two bigs that need to kind of be in the middle. I think it's a problem. And so I just wonder if they're able to get that identity back in some way. But being 16th in offense is way harder whenever you're just a pretty good defense, which is what they are today. And it's just not fun at all. Like the Timberwolves have not been fun. And they have one of the most fun players in the NBA on their squad. And they've somehow kind of messed this up and taken two steps back.
We have one category coming up later, bold prediction. I almost made the Timberwolves having an amazing run one of my bold predictions. I eventually chickened out. But yeah, I will say, over their last 6 games, per Clean the Glass, they've been the number one defense, and it's been by a wide margin. Mm-hmm. Now, the downside to that is, as good as their defense has been over these last 6 games, they've still gone 3-3. And their offense has been 25th in the league. Yeah. So at a time when I do feel like they're starting to find that defensive identity, which they have to have, that has to be their identity. Yeah. Are they going to figure out this offense? Because the offense has to be middle of the pack, which it is overall for the season. But in this recent stretch of games where they've gone 3-3, been the best defense in the league, it's been 25th overall.
Yeah, I think some of that is like they've held the Lakers and the Clippers to 80 points. And like both teams are not good. And like that's how you do that in that stretch. I mean, you look at the rest of the games during that stretch, it's nothing crazy impressive. I think it's like 2 like big outlier games that will help their defensive rating overall. But whenever you shorten that, they're going to be the best defense in the league when you hold teams to 80 points. But the Clippers are also holding themselves to 80 points on a lot of nights.
I will say, Rudy Gobert had a very fun game the other night against that Clippers team. 8, 9, and 7 with 5 steals. Shout out to Rudy. He's on my fantasy team. Our next award is the I Wasn't Familiar with Your Game award. And this goes to the team or player we were most wrong about going into the season. Who were you most wrong about, Andrew?
I think I was most wrong about the Clippers.
That's mine too.
Yeah, they're 14 and 10. They're 5th in defense. They're 24th in offense, 11th in net rating. And a lot of this, when you don't really know exactly what to point to with regards to like roster, you just kind of like point to the coach and just say like, hey, Ty Lue has done an amazing job. I think he's been helpful for a guy like Chris Dunn, who is somehow a plus 12.9 for them when he's on the court. Ivica Zubac has had a great season at a plus 9. Norman Powell is just shooting the lights out so far, shooting 50% from 3, and I have a little bit more on that later. And James Harden, he's the conductor of all things for the 24th ranked offense. And without him, it would probably be historically bad. So like 24th doesn't sound good, but I imagine them without James Harden. Like they would be hapless. Yeah. They would just have no chance. So I guess I was a little unfamiliar with how good the Clippers would be this season.
Yeah, I was the same way. And it was just because you could tell yourself the story. It was very easy to sell yourself. It was like, okay, James Harden plus role players in this Western Conference. Like, how is this possibly going to work? It's the thing that I think is so interesting about them is that if you were a Western Conference team banking on the Clippers not taking up one of those top 10 spots, like you're kind of screwed. Like if you're the Kings, the path to the playoffs is so much harder now that the Clippers are a completely solid team. You know, now there's still like one James Harden pulled hamstring from falling into the abyss, but as long as he's healthy, like this team is going to make life miserable for the rest of Western Conference. And we're hearing whispers now that Kawhi may be back before Christmas. And at that point, well, they're just like a good Western Conference team at that point. So those other teams, and then you factor in the Spurs are playing 500. Like the Kings are in a world of hurt right now, Andrew.
I know. Yeah, and there's this quote from Norman Powell about like what's different about this Clippers team this year. He says, I think this year we have guys who are really team-oriented and team-focused on both sides of the ball, who are willing to learn, grow, and have the mentality of doing whatever it takes to win. Everybody's coachable and focused on the task at hand. There are no egos. I think the atmosphere has been a lot of fun. We're playing pure basketball, which shot across the bow to a current Sixer, I would say.
To a current podcaster, I would say.
To a current podcaster.
Okay, our next award is the I don't know if you're allowed to do that award, which goes to the player or team whose hot start we are not buying. And Andrew, this may be controversial. The Grizzlies currently listen, hear me out. The Grizzlies currently have a top 5 offense, top 5 defense per clean the glass.
Yeah.
Only team in the league that has that. They are 15-8. They're 4th in the West, second best point differential in the West. There's been some talk recently about them being a contender in the West. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they're bad. I think they're a good Western Conference team. I am saying that I do not buy them as a contender in the West right now. This recent stretch that got everyone excited, where they went 7-1, the best win in that run was the Kings, who are 10-13. And looking back over their season as a whole, I wouldn't say they have some incredible resume. Their 4 best wins were over early season Milwaukee, the Lakers, Denver, and the Magic. All of those games were at home. When they have played a team that is currently in the top 6 in their conference, other than the Magic, they have lost. Now, they have absolutely handled their business, okay? And that's a mark of a contender. But I am not buying that this team is suddenly a contender in the West because they had a run of wins against Philly, Chicago, Portland, Detroit, New Orleans, and Indiana. Like, the West is too good to anoint every team that gets a run of Eastern Conference fodder as a, quote, true contender in the West. Can we see them beat someone first? You know, they play Boston tonight in Boston. If they beat them, I'll shut up. Okay, I'll shut up. They're good. Great. They can be a contender. But there's a reason why the Grizzlies have the toughest remaining strength of schedule in the league by a wide margin. Their schedule so far has been cake. Basketball Reference has their schedule as the easiest schedule in the league so far as a Western Conference team. So to be clear, Grizzlies are good. I just don't understand how you can say they are a contender based on this schedule. What have they done that has so impressed you? Was it beating the Lakers? Was it beating the Bucks when they couldn't win a game? Like, what have they done that is so impressive?
I actually have something later for you that I'll save it. And I do have I do have a rebuttal to this. And I'll save
bring
it.
A Grizz rebuttal.
Okay,
so Andrew, who's the player team whose hot start you are not buying?
I just talked so glowingly about the Clippers, but it's Norman Powell. He's
because he's shooting
50.7% from 3, 23, 2 and 2. He's currently 22nd in points per game in the NBA. Al, tell me this. How many players in the top 100 in scoring this season are shooting 50% or better from 3?
1. Norm Powell.
It's actually more than that.
Okay, well.
It's 3. It's Nikola Jokic, who's shooting 50%.
Wow.
It's Aaron Gordon, who doesn't really count because he's only played 10 games, and it's Norman Powell. And it's basically Jokic and Norman Powell. Like, that's the list of players in the top 100 of scoring. So it's not even like, hey, like the top 10 players or the top 25 players or whatever. No, it's like 100 players. There's only 2 guys that are shooting that well. Like, it's going to cool off. Like, it will. I just know it. Like, he's never shot this well. Nobody that scores this much shoots this well. Nobody does it. Nobody does it. Jokic won't do it, and certainly Norman Powell won't do it. That number will be 0 by the time we get to the end of the season.
What, you think his 3-point percentage is going to be 0?
No, I said the number of players.
Oh, okay.
The number of players that are shooting 50% or better.
I was going to say, save it for your bold prediction, Andrew.
Listen, somehow they're going to take away all the shots that he made. It's going to be 0, okay?
Now, he did shoot 44% from 3 last season.
Yeah, that's fine. 44%. I'm just saying, like, that's a normal good percentage. 50%
he also scored 14 points per game last season.
Yeah, I know. I'm just saying, like, it is like a total outlier, and it's part of like why they've stayed afloat, honestly.
Yeah. Okay, Andrew, next award, we got 2 left. The Time Traveler from June 2025 award. So this is a team whose immediate future we are most interested in finding out what happens. You get this gift of insight from the future, Andrew. Which team are you spending that on?
I think I'm going to go with the Golden State Warriors. They're in a weird spot right now where like the talk around the team is that they just don't have a secondary scorer. Marcus Thompson came on the NBA Daily earlier this week. You should go listen to it if you haven't listened to it yet. And he just talked about how they don't have anybody that you can turn to outside of Steph. And it makes it really easy and predictable down the stretch to play against the Warriors. And they haven't played that well recently. And so I think they're going to be aggressive. I think that you have to be whenever you are still on this Draymond Curry timeline and you don't have anybody that you can turn to. And so I just wonder what they're going to do, before the trade deadline. Because I do think like the window is still clearly open for them and they have a lot of different like good young players, but I think that you need to consolidate them and go find somebody that can help this team right now. Because like, what are you saving any assets for at this point? Like Steph is not going to be this player. He's already, declining and he's having injuries that he's never had before. Like it's now or never for the Warriors. And I'm just curious to see what they do in the trade market moving forward.
Andrew, are you not a Kuminga believer? Because on Thursday night, Jonathan Kuminga, 33 points, career high, scored 14 in the fourth, beat the Houston Rockets that you love to watch so much.
Yeah, that was with you love to watch so much. That was with, and that was without Steph. I just don't believe that he's going to be the guy. Even NBA.com doesn't believe he's that guy because the headline this morning on NBA.com was Kuminga flashes brilliance, and it's like flashes.
Oh, wow.
Okay, there you go. That's what you're getting. And even the NBA organization itself says, "Hey, this is just a flash."
Okay, my team that I'm spending this credit on to find out what happens by June 2025 is the Cleveland Cavaliers.
Okay.
Because they're getting to this point where as they keep winning games, they're entering historical territory. Like teams that won 20 of their first 23 games, that's only 34 teams in NBA history. 14 of them won the championship. 5 made the finals, 11 made the conference finals. Only 4 didn't make it to at least the conference finals. Now that they've beaten Boston, now granted, as I mentioned, Boston was missing Jaylen Brown, Derek White, but they've beaten Boston. They were super impressive against Boston in that first game that they lost. Other than the Atlanta Hawks games, like this team has just been steamrolling the league. And you look ahead at their schedule, next 4 games, Charlotte, Miami, Washington, Brooklyn. If they can win those, okay, they will be 24-3. Yeah. 24-3, Andrew. The number of teams then that have won 24 of their first 27 games, it cuts it in half. Now there's only 17 teams in NBA history who have done that. Like they are really entering crazy territory. And if you go even beyond that, now they have an NBA TV game against the Bucks on the 20th. Should be a good game. Then they play the Sixers and the Jazz. Like they could really start getting into like only 5 teams have ever started the season this well. And I just wasn't thinking about them like that going into the season. So now I really want to see how this plays out. Yeah. Because especially in the Eastern Conference where, with the Bucks being a little bit down compared to where I was thinking before the season, the Sixers obviously being way down compared to where I was thinking about them. There really does seem like there's this opportunity now for the Cavs. I mean, it looks pretty clear that they're going to be 1-2 with Boston in some order, which means they're going to at least avoid them till the conference finals. I mean, they could really make a serious run, which would be just incredible based on the way people were feeling about them coming off last season's playoffs. So I just want to see how this plays out. And that's why I'm putting it all on the Cavs. Which brings us to our final award of the season. Not really an award. It's our bold prediction for the rest of the season. Now, I love bold predictions. My belief when it comes to bold predictions is you have to choose something that doesn't feel good to say. You have to choose something that makes you uncomfortable saying. Okay? If it doesn't make you uncomfortable, it's probably not bold. My bold prediction is that the Bulls, the Chicago Bulls, are going to finish the season as the 9th seed for the 3rd straight season and lose their pick. Now, this offense is like legitimately good. Okay. They're 10th overall for the season, but they've been on fire as of late. I think they're like in the last 2 weeks, the second best offense in the NBA. Listen to their recent point totals: 139, 128, 129, 119, 127, 131, 136. Also, look at their schedule. They have one bad loss, in my opinion, a home loss to Utah. They have won basically every other game they should have won, except maybe at Brooklyn. But even that's not a bad loss. They have a couple nice wins. They're a perfectly mid team. Okay. They're beating the teams they should beat. They occasionally knock off a good team. Based on opponent winning percentage, they have the easiest remaining schedule in the league. Their next four are Indy, Philly, Charlotte, and Toronto, all teams below them. This is bold because we all know what they're going to do. They've already said it. They're open for business, Andrew. They're going to trade Zach LaVine. They're going to trade Vucevic. They're going to go into the tank. They're going to get their top 10 pick. That's how it's all going to go, right? No. I am betting against this dumb team. I think they're going to fall ass backwards into a play-in spot. I don't know how it's going to happen. Maybe the East is just too bad. Maybe the offense is just too good. Maybe they wait too long to make the perfect trade. I'm betting something with this plan goes awry, and I will be half watching a 9-10 play-in game featuring the Bulls this spring.
Oh, my gosh. You got to be kidding me.
Isn't that a miserable prediction?
It is. It is. There's probably some people like, oh, that sounds so nice. Like, no. Like,
that's the worst thing I could say about the Bulls.
It's honestly the meanest thing that you could say to Bulls fans right now. Trey Kirby, if you're listening, I'm so sorry. So sorry that you had to hear that. Okay, my prediction that I don't necessarily feel good about, and I feel even worse about it now after hearing you talk about this team.
Okay.
But I'm going to say the Memphis Grizzlies by season's end are going to be thought of as like the clear number 2 team in the West.
Okay. Now, over the Mavs, over the Warriors, over the Rockets.
Yeah. Over all these teams. And I think I look at, so yes, they haven't beaten anybody. They haven't been that impressive, but they also have missed some of their key guys a ton of minutes. Here's their top 5 guys in total minutes played this season. Santi Aldama is the number 1 player in total minutes played at 635. Jaren Jackson Jr., Jalen Wells, their second round rookie, is 3rd in total minutes played. Scottie Pippen Jr. is 4th. And then Jake LaRavia, a guy that they said, you know what, not picking up your option. And they kind of have messed up a little bit here, just because LaRavia has actually been really good, has shot it well, and has played well. Like, that's their top 5 guys in minutes played. That's not their best players. And so if this team can get healthy, I just think like there is a ceiling here for this team that we've seen in the past, with a Ja Morant, Jaren Jackson Jr. team. And I think like we haven't really seen what this team looks full strength with, like Marcus Smart in the lineup. They found somebody in Jay Huff as well, like this, older, like veteran that like seems new to everybody, but he's already 26 years old, but is playing really well for them. I just feel like they found enough guys, and like they have the stars in Ja Morant and Jaren Jackson that I think that they could very well be that team. I mean, it wasn't that long ago that we thought of this team as like one of the best teams in the West. And I think that they will cement themselves as that by season's end.
All right. Well, that's very exciting, Andrew. We're kind of going head to head on the Grizz. Now, to be fair, I just want to see them play some good teams in the West on the road and beat them. I do think they're good. They're obviously very deep. They're an incredibly deep team. Can we see it, Andrew? Can we see it? That's all I'm asking for.
Yeah.
So, Andrew, next up, we're not doing Nuggets. We're extending Nuggets to 3 weeks, the longest Wheel of Fandom week ever. They haven't even been that good. I kind of felt bad because when we picked them, we were on this incredible run of teams just being terrible on Wheel of Fandom.
Yeah.
They haven't been great either. They haven't been as terrible as those teams, but it's been kind of dicey over these last 2 weeks. They've alternated wins and losses for 9 straight games now.
Yeah, it feels.
But this does mean that we get to see them play the Washington Wizards tomorrow on Saturday. So I'll be tuning in for that, leaving my family to watch a Nuggets Wizards game at 4 p.m. on a Saturday. I'll be doing that.
Beautiful. Yeah, we're not talking Nuggets, but we are going to talk to our buddy John Hollinger from The Athletic right after this break. All right, Al. It's time for our guests. We're bringing on the co-author of the Basketball 100 with David Aldridge. It's our guy, John Hollinger from The Athletic. John, what's up?
How you guys doing?
We're doing great.
Very good.
So, John, we're doing our first quarter awards on the pod this week, which we call the Slammies. So we'd like to throw a couple awards at you to see who you would pick. First up is the League Pass Team Award. It's for the first quarter. Which team that you have watched the most this season? So who would you give that award to?
So the team that I've watched the most and the team that's like the team you should be watching in League Pass are not the same thing. Okay.
Yes, correct.
Just okay. So luck of the draw. I've seen like half the Clippers games this year. Okay.
Okay.
They're fine, but I wouldn't call them like a League Pass must see, So
you didn't set out to watch Clippers games. You just stumbled into them night after night.
Well, a little bit, like, as you know, so when I saw you out in OKC, Andrew, that was a Clippers game. Yeah. I went to LA for a few days, saw the Clippers play at home. I saw them play on the road somewhere else too, just like on one of my trips. And then like every time I need to see another team, they are playing the Clippers at the time. Basically is how it's worked out for me. So anyway, I've seen a lot of Clippers this year.
Give us like your actual League Pass like team award.
It's got to be Houston. I mean, because they're new, they're fun. They're a good team, but there's still a little bit of drama, like in crunch time, where you're like, is this going to be incredibly tragic, or are they just going to make some crazy athletic play and kind of salvage it? And then, they like lots of interesting characters to watch too on that team, obviously too. So I think Houston's the League Pass team.
So our next award is the Now This Is Going to Be Fun award, which in honor of the Steve Nash, Dwight Howard Lakers goes to the player or team that has been your biggest disappointment. Who would be that so far this season?
Come on. They even had the big free agent signing and whatever, just like the the SI cover. I mean, it's got to be Philadelphia.
Yeah.
It's
very sad.
It's been way worse than anyone could imagine.
Yeah. Like if somebody, I wrote about this in my column today on The Athletic, actually, so I'll just promote my own stuff here. But if somebody had told you before the year that they would have drafted the Rookie of the Year at 16 after the summer they had, you would have been like, well, they're going to like win the championship, right?
It's so brutal.
Not so really much, right?
Yeah.
They'd be fighting with the Wizards.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah, it's tough. Okay, the next one is I wasn't familiar with your game award, which goes to the team or player that you were most wrong about heading into this season.
Well, I'm sure my readers will offer several nominations for that. Let's see. Who like most wrong about, like they're better than I had originally. All right. How about the Orlando Magic and Franz Wagner?
Okay.
I mean, like we all knew he was good, but he's gone to another level, and he is a 6'10" point guard. Like you watch him, he dribbles the ball up against a small, and he has no problem with it at all. And I think teams see him and think they're going to be able to heat him up and whatever, and they just can't. And I think that's the part that's really underestimated and kind of amazing.
Well, that might actually be your answer for our final award, which is the Raise the Roof award, which goes to the player whose ceiling has increased the most, in your opinion, through the early part of the season. Would you choose Franz for that as well?
Let me think about that one. Raise the roof for the player whose ceiling has increased the most.
Maybe you liked them previously, but you're having to rethink their entire future. So they could be so much better than you thought.
I don't know. Is Franz that guy too? Like it might be him.
It might be. I was thinking Dyson Daniels.
Dyson's a good one. The Great Barrier Thief. I'm going to see him again tonight. Dyson's a good one. I like that. Nice. Yeah. Yeah. Actually, there are two Hawks you could select, actually, because Jalen Johnson, like, even though he was a most improved candidate last year, I think he's gone up even another level. He actually got off to a slow start the first couple of weeks. And then these last few weeks during this 5-game winning streak, he's been amazing.
Yeah. What would be like the thing specifically about Jalen that like makes you like change the way you think about him?
I think just the ability to play on the ball and be a creator and sort of be like the de facto point guard when Trae Young is off the court. So that because he was mostly a play finisher, even the last couple of years. So I think that offers another level of, okay, now he can be like a high volume guy.
Mm-hmm. John, let's talk about the new book that you wrote with David Aldridge, amongst many other people at The Athletic, titled The Basketball 100, where you guys ranked the 100 greatest NBA players of all time. So before we get into some of our questions about the list itself, could you briefly explain the methodology behind the list and who was involved in that process, and like what things did you give extra weight to during that process? Okay, so there were a lot of people involved in the process. So this was not just me and DA sitting down and coming up with 100 dudes. There was a whole thing we went through at The Athletic with the whole staff and people making their lists of top 70. We started with top 75 because the NBA did their 75 at the same time, and then we expanded it to 100 for the book. And so there was a lot of, I think, back and forth and a lot of discussion. I made a formula called GOAT points to kind of help the discussion, but you can see, I mean, the list we ended up with did not like hew to my little spreadsheet or whatever, because there's just a lot more that goes into this discussion than, just filling out blanks on a spreadsheet, obviously. But the thing that really stuck out to me, though, was that if you're talking about 100 players and if you're talking about the lifespan of the NBA, that if somebody wasn't at some point considered either the best player in the league or one of the 5 best players in the league or kind of on that level, that it was really hard for them to make a case to be in the top 100 of all time. Like if you just do the math on the time frames that we're talking about and stuff. So like there were players who just through longevity or other considerations made it into the back half of the list. So it wasn't an ironclad rule, but I thought it was a really good guidepost as we went through and looked at a lot of these guys.
So there's a thread on NBA Reddit right now about this list. Currently has over 700 comments. And I wanted to ask you about the biggest disagreement people had, which was with Nikola Jokic, who is ranked 28th. Obviously, only one of 9 players with 3 MVPs, possible 4th coming this season, one of the greatest offensive players of all time. He's got a ring. I know I don't know if this would be your personal rankings, but on your GOAT points rankings, he was 21st. Why do you think he didn't end up ranked higher than 28th on the final list?
I'll give you a couple of reasons. First of all, I think we've had a hard time catching up to his career. It's like when the NBA did that top 75 list and he wasn't even on it. Like that was outrageously like ridiculous. But also people mentally hadn't caught up to the 2 MVPs he had at that point and what kind of player he was. So I think there's an element of that. But the other thing is, for every active player, we had the same issue, which is how do we consider their careers? And the guideline we ended up at was sort of the struck by lightning / hit by a bus guideline. Like if their career just ended right now, how would we evaluate it? Because that's the only known part that we have to work with. So we can't make any assumptions about future All-Stars, future MVPs or whatever. Just assume it ends right now. So that wasn't just a problem with Nikola. It was a problem with Giannis. It was a problem with Luka. It was a problem with every active player that we dealt with. Joel Embiid, for instance, like, okay, well now he might not really play again. Like, okay, like what does that mean? So that I thought was the best way that we could handle it. And even so, 28 might be too low. I think I argued for him to be higher than that. I can't really remember because this was, publishing deadlines being what they are, it's funny that I'm talking to people about this now so much because it's like, oh yeah, what did I write 8 months ago? But it's really hard with the active guys. I think you have a much clearer perspective when the player either like it, or at least when they've started their decline phase. So you sort of know what the book is on the main body of their career. But a guy like Jokic, where he's still active, still might win another MVP. Yeah, I think that's really hard.
Yeah, that makes sense. So whose ranking on this list is most different from where they would be if you were making a personal ranking with no input from anybody else?
Well, when we first started this, I had Jokic way higher than anyone else did. I know that.
I know, looking at your GOAT points list, one guy you were higher on was Chris Paul, and another one was David Robinson. They were much higher than the overall list.
Yeah. And I think that was reflected in where I had them on my actual ballot too. I guess those guys, and I don't know, James Harden, I think, was another one. I think he still gets kind of a bad rap that, like, okay, once you get past like the automatic 25 guys or so, it's like how many of the others are really better than James Harden? And I think the answer is very, very few of them. So I think he's one for sure.
Was there a player or two that caused the biggest disagreement among the selection committee? Like, who had the widest variance, do you think, in opinion?
The widest variance generally was secondary players on championship teams. You know, the guys on the Lakers and Celtics who weren't Magic and Bird, or, you know, even like the guys like, you know, when we got down to right at the end of the 100, you know, Draymond and Clay, or I'm trying to think other players who were parts of great teams or dynasties, but weren't the guy. I think those were the hardest. Why even Scottie Pippen, I think, was hard for people. So I would say in general, that's where the debates happened. The Knicks guys from the 70s were another one.
Yeah, DA mentioned yesterday on No Dunks that you fought pretty hard for Jimmy Butler. What was your Jimmy Butler argument?
My Jimmy Butler argument at its core was, and DA's right, I did fight really hard for Jimmy Butler, is that how many players in history have been the best player on not one, but two NBA finalists? In addition to, you know, being a pretty key player on some other teams too, like that Philadelphia team that lost on 4 bounces. Go through the list of players in NBA history who were the best player on 2 different NBA finalists, and look at where they rank on that top 100. And then, like, okay, we're going to leave Jimmy Butler out entirely. Like, I couldn't really make the case for that. So we'll see. He's a difficult career to evaluate because he doesn't have a lot of like the typical accolades that guys build up in terms of, there's a lot of years where he didn't make the All-Star team because he only played 60 games or whatever, or people just forgot to vote for him, or I don't know what. You know, didn't make a lot of All-NBA teams for the same reason. But then so many of those years you get to the postseason and he shows up and just wrecks people who were perceived as massively better, right? Like, how many people have outplayed Giannis in a playoff series twice, you know? Yeah. So I think he has those sort of high level accomplishments that virtually every player who's ever played does not have. And to me, that offsets some of the things you might hold against him in terms of career totals, or, you know, whatever his career length ends up being, all-star appearances and things like that, where he's a little short compared to some other guys. But I just think at the highest level, he has so much more going in his favor.
Last question. If you could put money on 3 players to crack the top 100 in 10 years, and you can't choose Wemby, who would be your first 3 picks?
3 players to crack the top 100 in 10 years. Okay, first of all, I honestly don't remember if Shea made the 100 or not.
He did not.
No, he did not. Well, he's definitely one then, because I know he was a guy we talked about toward the end. All right, so I got to come up with 2 others for my 100 to say that they're definitely going to be there in the next one. Okay, so now my mind is instantly blanking on good young players, of course. I think
I can tell you some names I saw.
Cooper Flagg and AJ Dibanza. Can I say those 2?
You could.
Yeah, going by like all-star appearances, I was seeing like Anthony Edwards, Devin Booker, Donovan Mitchell. Were some of the guys that had the potential.
Those are good names. Book is going to be interesting because I think he might be a guy who like gets into the top 100 and then immediately gets pushed out again. Some of these other guys,
I could see that.
Start racking up accomplishments. Mitchell would be interesting. I tell you what, if Cleveland ends up winning a title, Donovan Mitchell's legacy, I think, will be seen differently, and I think he becomes a very interesting player for the top 100 too. Who's that third guy you had?
Well, I just saw John Morant.
Edwards.
That's another name, but yeah, Edwards.
Anthony Edwards, definitely. I think his career, we're still figuring out what he is, and so I think some people are projecting ahead on him too, and we'll see if he gets to those places. I mean, Andrew, you should have just asked him. Like, he had a way better list than I did, man. Ja to me has been a little too injured, and I'm not sure how long he's going to be able to play. So I don't know if he's going to quite end up at that level. Again, Franz and Paolo in Orlando, man. I mean, that could be a thing right there.
I did want to ask you about Cleveland. You mentioned them. Like, where's your belief in this Cleveland team as far as like title contention? Like, where are they in your pecking order?
I had them third. I mean, I had them third coming into the year. I picked them in 57 games, and I, be the clear number 2 in the East. So I was all in on these guys from the word go, and nothing has happened to change my opinion on that. If we get a Cleveland OKC finals, people are going to bitch, but those are the places where we're going to go, and we're going to have some fun there, and we're going to take advantage of that great jogging trail along the river in OKC.
Lake Hefner, yeah.
Shout out Lake Hefner. Well, John, thank you for answering all our questions. It's now time to play Andrew versus the Beat, our weekly trivia show where Andrew goes head to head against an NBA beat writer, or in this case, John Hollinger, author of the Basketball 100.
All right.
Now, John, how this works, I've come up with 8 questions, and this time they're all related to things that have happened in this first quarter of the NBA season. So you're going to give me a number between 1 and 8. It'll correspond to a question. Some are easy, some are hard. If you get it right, you'll get at least 2 points. And then if you get it wrong, Andrew will have a chance to steal for 1, and we'll go back and forth until all the questions have been asked and answered. So to start us off, I just need a number between 1 and 8.
Does it have to be an integer?
It has to be an integer.
I can't say pi?
It has to. No.
All right. 3.
Okay, question number 3. Okay, among 2-man lineups that have played at least 200 minutes together, 9 of the worst 11 2-man lineups are combinations of Wizards players. The other 2 lineups that are in the bottom 11 are made up of players from these 2 teams. So you get 1 point per correct answer. So we're thinking the worst 2-man lineups in the league. Most of them are from the Wizards, but 2 of them are from other teams in the NBA. What teams are they from? You don't have to tell me the players.
Pelicans.
Just the team names. Pelicans. That is incorrect. Andrew, you have a chance to steal.
Oh boy.
I thought for sure that the Javonte Green, Eve Missy lineup was going to be down
there. What about the Nuggets? What about some Nuggets bench players?
Andrew, a great guess. Russell Westbrook, Julian Strawther, one of the worst 2-man lineups. Yes. That gives you 1 point. Andrew, can you name the other one?
Oh boy. What about a couple Pacers?
No, Andrew. Correct answer, Andre Drummond and Tsunami Papi, Kelly Oubre Jr. for the Philadelphia 76ers.
That's a beautiful combination.
It is.
Oh my gosh.
Nice.
That's real basketball. Okay, Andrew, the board is yours.
Number 1.
Question number 1. There are 4 players who currently lead their team in total blocks while also being 6'6" or shorter. How many can you name? And you get 1 point per correct answer. So you could get 4 points here, but I'm betting that you won't. But 4 players, they lead their team in total blocks, but they're 6'6" or shorter.
Okay.
Who could that be?
I've named the team or the player? The team?
Player.
The player?
Yeah,
Drew Holiday?
Andrew, that is incorrect.
What?
John, you could steal 4 points here.
Okay, first of all, Andrew, wait. Would he lead the team in blocks? I don't know. Maybe not, but I think he does.
I will look it up right now.
Jalen Williams in Oklahoma City.
Total blocks. Oh, it's very funny what Andrew's answer was. Jalen Williams in Oklahoma City. That is also incorrect. You guys did not get either of the names.
The other guy I came up with was Tari Eason.
Tari Eason, a good guess. Also incorrect. Chet still leads the Thunder in blocks. And guess what? Shea is second. SGA is second.
Yeah.
Okay.
The names.
Yeah, he's been good.
Now, the one I thought you might have gotten, Derek White, known as a small guy who gets a lot of blocks.
God, they've got all the guys.
Yeah.
Another name I thought you might have gotten, Draymond Green. Draymond Green.
Oh, come on.
The other two, though, I don't think you would have guessed. For the Sixers, KJ Martin currently leads the Sixers in total blocks.
No way.
And tied with Keegan Murray on the Sacramento Kings is Keon Ellis.
Keon
That's
Ellis.
right.
No
Keon
way.
Ellis.
Oh, Keon. Shout out to Keon.
Shout out to Keon. Okay, John, you have control of the board. Only down by 1.
Let's go with Joe Theismann's number 7.
Question number 7. Oh, this is a fun one. Through 20 games, rookie Jared McCain has scored 329 points. Among active players, only 15 scored as many points through their first 20 games in the league, and we're going to name them all. So how this works, John, you'll give me a name, then Andrew will give me a name, and we'll go back and forth till one of you stumbles. So these are players who, in their first 20 games as NBA rookies, scored at least 329 points, and they're active players.
All right, LeBron James.
Guess what? LeBron James scored exactly 329 points in his first 20 games. Just made the cut.
Just
All
made
right,
the
Andrew,
cut.
over to you.
Paolo.
Paulo was number 2, Andrew. Back to John.
Luka Doncic.
Luka is on the list. Back to Andrew.
Let's see. Anthony Davis.
Anthony Davis. Andrew, that is incorrect.
Wow.
He did not score as many points as Jared McCain.
Wow.
No way.
Wow.
That is wild.
Wow.
John, do you have any other guesses? Any other names you want to throw out there?
Zion Williamson.
He was number 1 on the list. Zion scored the most points. Anyone else you guys want? I mean, these a lot of easy names, I would say.
All right, here's one that I think people wouldn't think of, but I think he's going to end up on the list. DeAndre Ayton.
DeAndre Ayton on the list.
On the list.
Yes,
More
sir.
than Anthony Davis.
The
That still
funniest
blows
name
my
on this
mind.
list is just ahead of LeBron, Kyle Kuzma. Kyle Kuzma did it.
I don't even know what to say. Like I am at I just don't even know what to say.
The other names are all pretty obvious. Kevin Durant, Benedict Mathurin, if you remember the start of his rookie season, was crazy.
Oh, yeah.
Wemby, Damian Lillard,
Yeah,
Ja Morant, Ben Simmons, Embiid, Kyrie Irving, and Chet did it. So
Wait,
now
Ben
John
Simmons?
is ahead. Ben Simmons did it. Yes,
Ben
sir.
Simmons more than Anthony Davis. I don't even know. I have nothing to say.
All right, Andrew, you're now down 2-1, but you do have control of the board.
Okay, number 2.
Question number 2. Hold on. Here we go. This Eastern Conference player is outside the top 10 in points per game, but is top 5 in total points scored. Who is it? Now, if you want a hint, Andrew, I'll knock a point off and I'll give you a pretty good hint. I've told you it's an Eastern Conference player.
Eastern Conference player.
Outside of the top 10 in points per game, but top 5 in total points scored. So in other words, a guy who's played a lot.
Yeah.
Hasn't missed a game, Eastern Conference. He's top 5 in total points scored.
Top 5 in total points scored, but outside
top 10 in points per game.
Top 10 in points per game. This is a weird one. Is this Franz?
Oh, Andrew, that is correct for 2 points. Good job. Good job. All right, we got a game on our hands. Andrew's up 3-2. John, the board is yours.
Let's go with number 5.
Question number 5. Through 21 games, Anthony Edwards has hit 94 three-pointers. In NBA history, only 2 players have hit more than that through the first 21 games of the season. Now, you have to name both players to get the 2 points.
All right. So I'm going to say Steph Curry is 1.
Okay, that is your first guess. And what is your second guess?
Buddy Hield.
Buddy Hield. Andrew, John's answer is incorrect. Now, I'm not going to tell you one of his answers was right or wrong. You have to give me 2 names, Andrew.
Okay.
At least 94 three-pointers through the first 21 games.
I feel like there's like 2 like low-hanging fruit answers that I feel like would be, because it's too obvious, I think that it is probably wrong.
Interesting.
But I'll just go with it anyways, and I'll say Steph and Dame.
Andrew, Dame, once upon a time, hit 92 through his first 21 games, but didn't hit 94. Steph, of course, was a correct answer. The other correct answer, John was talking about him earlier, underappreciated, talking about Uno, James Harden. James Harden did it.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow. Okay, Andrew, the board is yours. 3 questions remain.
Okay, number 4.
Question number 4. Through 17 games, rookie Donovan Clingan has a 12.3 block percentage. In NBA history, only 3 players have finished a season with a block percentage of at least 10, assuming they played at least 50 games. So how many of those guys can you name? You get 1 point per correct answer.
Since what year?
These are since ever.
Since ever. Okay.
So they have to have played at least 50 games. Only 3 guys have done this. Finished the season with a block percentage of at least 10. 3 names.
Wait. So
yes.
You said since ever, but I don't think that's right. I don't think they have block percentage when Bill Russell played.
That's true. That is true. John's got me there. This is according to Basketball References stats. So since they've counted blocks.
It's going to be since about 1974, I want to say.
74.
Okay.
And Andrew, Dikembe Mutombo. Andrew, that is incorrect. Incorrect. John, you have a chance to steal 3 points. 3 points.
Right.
The biggest blocksman of all time.
Crazy block percentage. I believe that is one of the answers, Elmore Smith.
Elmore Smith. I've never heard that name in my life. Unfortunately, that means it's not the correct answer.
The first year they started tracking blocks, he had a ton. I don't know if they have block percentage for that year, though.
Let me go see. So his 73-74 season with the Lakers, he had a block percentage of 6.4, which did lead the league at that time. And that was the first year they calculated it. The names, Manute Bol, who did it multiple times. Alonzo Mourning did it once. And then last year, someone did it. And that would be Victor Wembanyama. 10-0 block percentage.
Brutal.
All right. So that brings us 2 questions left. John, you have control of the board. You're down by 1.
Let's go with 8.
Question number 8. Oh, this is a great one. There is a team in the NBA who only takes 24.9% of their shot attempts at the rim, which is the lowest percentage in the league. That same team allows opponents to only take 25.1% of their shots at the rim, which is also the lowest percentage in the league. When this team's playing, no one's going to the rim. Who is that team? And as a hint, it's not obvious. Okay, that is my hint for this question. So this team isn't getting to the rim. They're also not letting opponents get to the rim. Who could that team be?
Sacramento.
Oh, that is correct for 2 points.
Wow.
Now, why did you pull that name? What made you say that?
When you said it wasn't obvious, I was like, okay, so it's not Boston. And then I just thought about it for 1 second, like it's team MIDI and they're doing something with scheme on defense. And then I was like, okay, Sacramento's scheme is like all just, don't let people get to the rim because they have no rim protectors and they'll just deal with whatever else happens. So,
wow, that's a great
pull.
And
then I was with DeRozan being there now. I was like, oh yeah, helps that I watched them last night too. So,
yeah, another loss for the poor Kings.
Brutal.
That was an amazing poll. You are now in the lead 4-3, which brings us to our final question. Andrew, if you get this right, you win the week. Okay. And I'm very excited about this question. The Wizards are 2-18. They have lost 16 in a row. In NBA history, there have been 25 teams that have started 2-18 or worse through their first 20 games. Among those teams, what was the highest win total at the end of the season? Now, you get to choose who answers first.
No.
So you can make John answer first, and then you go higher or lower, or you can answer first and make John go higher or lower.
Okay.
So what would you like to do, Andrew?
I'll say the highest ever is 42 wins.
Okay, so Andrew believes that a team who started 2-18 or worse won 42 games. John, would you like to go higher or lower than that?
Oh, I am banging the under on that.
John is banging the under. It was the 1984-85 Cavs, coached by George Karl, made the playoffs, took a game off the 85 Celtics. They finished the season with 36 wins, which means John is our winner this week. 5-3. Congratulations.
Man. Congratulations, John. Hey, go read John Hollinger at The Athletic. John, anything specific you want people to go read today?
Yeah, my all disappointment team is out. So
nice.
lots of Sixers talk in there.
Lots of Sixers talk in there. Please go read John at The Athletic and check out the Basketball 100. It's a great book. I have it. Honestly, John, the person who has read this book the most, and I told you this when you were in Oklahoma City, is my 12-year-old son. He saw it come in. He opened it before I could even get my hands on it, and he has kept it in his room this whole time, which I am like, please, like, that's amazing. And so he's like, who is that guy? And then we'll have these conversations at the dinner table about some random player that played in the 80s that he never heard of. So you're actually not the only person I've talked to who's been like, yeah, I haven't been able to open the book because my teenage kid is just hoovering it up. So it's, which is amazing to see, kids taking an interest in the history of the league like that. Yeah. It's amazing. John, thanks so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me, guys.
All right. Thanks again to John Hollinger for joining the show. If you leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, we will read it right here on the show, which you can watch on YouTube, by the way. If you're not watching on YouTube, just search The Athletic NBA Daily and please hit that subscribe button. Like and subscribe, people. Our first review comes from, it actually comes from France. It comes from Paris. What's this say? Parisian Jokic fan. There we go. 5 stars. Hope the wheel of fandom's power of destruction will not apply this time on the Jokic-dependent Nuggets. Great show. Keep going. From Paris, France. Thank you so much for that review. This one comes from Patty McSherry in the USA. 5 stars. Slam and Jam, the GOAT. All the Athletic NBA shows are great, but Slam and Jam is the very best podcast out there. I look forward to it every week, but I need to call attention to a grave injustice done during 76ers trivia last week.
Oh, no.
Andrew was up 2 points and selected question 2, which was a multi-tier part answer about rookies. Andrew got 1 point, Allen Iverson, and Trill got 1 point, Joel Embiid. And after the question, Alex said Andrew only led by 1 now, but he should have still been leading by 2. Normally, it's whatever, but Trill won trivia by 1 point, meaning this should have gone to sudden death. Still, though, love the podcast so much. Best NBA podcast out there. So,
wow,
thank you,
Patty.
Are
you going to be sending a protest into the league office?
Yes, thank you, Patty, for helping me out here. I needed some help. Someone was even accusing me of not trying during there, but the fix is in right now.
You need to call up Daryl Morey.
Beat.
He'll hook you up. You clip the audio and video, send it to Adam Silver, see what he thinks.
Help me, Daryl. Next one comes from Joseph_LTU in Lithuania. Slam and Jam, 5 stars. Keep that curse wheel away from my Knicks. My go-to NBA podcast, the right mix of stats and vibes, and the trivia contest is a great way for a relatively novice fan like me to get obscure basketball knowledge. Thanks for making my early morning trips to work more cheerful. Thank you so much for that review. And please leave us a review. And again, we'll read it on the show. I hope you guys have a great weekend. Enjoy the basketball, and we'll talk to you guys again next Saturday.